Greetings, Lucky Legends. My name is Lucky, this is Lucky Led TV, and I'm your host for this video, and I'm so hyped because I've missed recording so much. I'm recording this on Monday, it's late, it's hot, that's why no beanie. I can't wear the beanie when it's hot because I get it all overheat. I'll melt. I will melt and boil. But as you can also see here, I already built the team. And you're probably thinking, hey, why did you already build the team? And the reason that I'm doing it this way is because I want to see which type you guys prefer. I want to know if you prefer the post-commentated version in which you get the breakdown of why I chose what I did and so on and so forth, because I like doing that for you guys because it helps you understand my mindset of how I like to build teams. It's a little bit better than the live version because that's a lot of... When I build in the live version, you get probably like 3 solid minutes overall of this. Whereas in this version, you don't have to go through all of that. And I could cut and splice all that stuff out, but it's a huge pain in the ass, and there's really no necessity for it. So instead, I'm going to try this out. Tell me if you prefer this version. Definitely wait until the end of the video, because then you'll be able to see the Team Magma Team Builder breakdown, which shows you all of the weaknesses and resistances. But now that I've gotten all of the introduction stuff out of the way, let me explain to you this team. So, the star is our Frostlass. Mega Please, the Choice Specs Frostlass. I gave it max speed. It's in BL2, which, in my opinion, means it's in UU. Because BL2 means you're not allowed to use it in RU. I don't know why they bother having the borderline tiers in the first place, because you can't really... BL2 basically means UU, and BL basically means OU. The only time it works is if you're doing some sort of mixed tier thing and you say you can't do anything above BL. But for me, when it comes to team building, you can't build a team in BL or BL2. There's not enough Pokemon. Well, you could, but it probably wouldn't turn out so well. So I went with the Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, and Psychic. The reason I went with those 4 moves is because they are the 4 moves that do the most damage, and it gives me the most coverage out of Frostlass. Frostlass, however, is weak to Fire. It is weak to Ghost, it is weak to Dark, it is weak to Rock, and it is weak to Steel. That's 5 types. I don't like 5 weakness type Pokemon. I prefer 3 or less. That's a lot easier to handle. But there's no single Pokemon that resists all 5 of those, so I figured I'm going to have to build like a 3-part core. And that's kind of what I did here. So I decided to go with a physically defensive Hydreigon. The reason I went with this spread, rather than a specially defensive Hydreigon with an Assault Vest, which was my original thought, the reason I went with this set is because I wanted it to have Roost. I wanted it to have reliable recovery. I don't want to have to use leftovers on a Mon like that. So, it's level 50 with the Rocky Helmet, max physical defense and HP. It doesn't hit that hard, but to the same extent, it's a Hydreigon, so it'll still hit really hard. That's one of the reasons that I love Hydreigon so much, is that no matter what you do, it's still going to hit hard. It has base 125 special attack. And I have U-turn on it as well for some switch initiative. That helps a lot in terms of gaining momentum, especially since he doesn't have speed investment. That means I could potentially take a physical hit and then U-turn out and have some momentum by going into one of my other Pokemon. Next up, to complement his weaknesses, because he has a lot too, he has a double weakness to Fairy. He has a weakness to Fighting, but Mega Please is immune to that, so I wasn't worried about that one. He has a weakness to Bug. He has a weakness to Ice. And he has a weakness to Fighting. I already said that one. Dragon. I always forget that one because it's like... it's so irrelevant. But I figured out that the best complement to Trident was Empoleon, for 2 reasons. One, it Empoleon makes a really good special wall, which complements Trident's physical walliness. But the other really good part about it is that Empoleon gets Stealth Rock, and it resists the stuff that Mega Please and Trident are weak to. Like, it resists the Rock, which we didn't have that covered yet, and it resists Fairy, which is what I was really worried about. And like I said, it gets the Stealth Rock. It has Protect to help out with the leftovers, and also for scouting purposes. Now you're probably wondering, why bother scouting in a 6v6 battle? Well, the thing about it is that there's a lot of really common choice Pokemon in this tier. Like, as I'm going to show you guys right now, there's a lot of Pokemon in this tier that are typically choiced. Either Choice Banded, Choice Specs, or Choice Scarfed. Arcanine can be Choice Banded pretty often. Chandelure, Scarfed. We have Darmanitan, Scarfed. We have Crobat, he's on my team. I'm not running it Choice, but you could easily Choice Band that thing. It's fast as hell. Entei, Choice Banded Entei is definitely a thing. And, I mean, we're just going through right now. There's plenty more. Scarfed Heracross is another one that is possible. Scarfed Infernape or Banded Infernape. It's pretty fast. You can choice a Mamoswine. You can choice Mienshao. Nidoking is usually Scarfed, and it's really, really strong. Porygon Z is another example. I mean, I'm kind of just like going through and showing you all of this, but you get the point, is that there's a lot... I don't know why I did that. There's a lot of potential choice mons in this tier. Flygon's also in there, I believe. I think I skipped it, which is often Choice Banded or Choice Scarfed. And being able to use Protect to scout that out will be really, really helpful. Because then I can say, okay, I know they're going for Extreme Speed. I gotta switch out. And a Choice Banded Extreme Speed from an Entei, it's not fun to switch into on, but Trident can take that really well, and I can roost back up and U-turn out when I need to. So that's the mindset I had behind Empoleon. And the big issue that I had right now was Empoleon's fighting weakness, because now we have 2 fighting weaknesses right here. So I thought, we have an immunity, but we should also get a resistance in here. So I actually knew that I wanted to use Bruce Wayne first. However, I didn't pick him first because I was more concerned about getting a Rapid Spinner. And Rock On Rock the Don fan was calling out to me. I gave it the Assault Vest to make it really nice and neutrally bulky. Its special defense stat with the Assault Vest goes up to 121.5. Or I think it rounds up, so 122. And its physical defense is naturally at 140, which is very nice. And I gave it full attack investment because it is an attacking mon. It's going to have my knockoff. It's going to have my Ice Shard for the Salamences and the Flygons. And it's also going to have max HP investment, so it can easily come in on Stealth Rocks as many times as I really have to and Rapid Spin them away. It resists the Rock, so it can switch in on them, I think, like 16 times. And, of course, Earthquake, Stab, does a lot of damage. It's weak to Grass, Water, and Ice. The Ice we have covered with Empoleon, it's double resist. The Grass we have covered with Trident, but to the same extent I wanted a better Grass resist. And the Ice we really... Sorry, not the Ice. The Water we also had very well covered. Trident and Empoleon both resisted. So I wasn't worried about that. We have a physical and a special candidate to take a water type attack. But anyway, forward onto the Crobat. I wanted to run a Life Orb Crobat. The reason being, I don't want my Crobat choiced into anything. Because I wanted to be able to run Super Fang on it. Super Fang's a really good move. Probably one of the best in terms of reliable HP depletion. Because it cuts your opponent's HP in half every time. And that's really useful. Crobat doesn't have a really good Poison Stab move. However, in this tier, I'm not as worried about it, because I can go for the Cross Poison and then a Brave Bird, and that will take out a Florius, which is the thing that I'm worried about the most, where I could probably cross poison U-turn and it would take it out. But I went with the Life Orb set with max speed. It would speed tie with a Pokemon with a base speed of 180, which does not exist, so I wasn't worried about it. It's one of the fastest mons in the tier. It may be the fastest mon in the tier, tied with Aerodactyl. It wouldn't surprise me. But the problem that this gave is that it gave me another rock weakness, which I wasn't a fan of. And I also didn't have any good late game sweepers. And I don't have an early game sweeper either, but to the same extent, Rock on Rock can do a lot of damage early game between Knockoff and Earthquake. And Mega Please, it has great coverage. It hits everything that I really need to. Bruce Wayne is like mid-game because it has a switch initiative, so it's going to be going in and out. I specifically went with Bruce Wayne, meaning Crobat, rather than another flying type. I knew I needed a flying type, and I also knew I needed a poison type. I was debating whether or not to do those two separately, but I decided to put them together because Crobat's fat enough. He can take a few hits that aren't, super effective, obviously. And I was also highly considering running Roost on him, but it would be really hard to do that. Simply because he doesn't have the reliable bulk to take hits. There's a lot of strong ground types in this tier, and if he roosts, they'll be able to predict it and they can hit me with an Earthquake and he'll probably go down. The other reason I'm not running Roost is because I don't expect him to... I'm not going to switch him in on rocks. That's why I have my Donphan. That's like the only thing I'm going to be switching in on Stealth Rocks unless it's like a last-ditch effort. The other reason I'm not running Roost is because this last slot I want to give to Super Fang. I didn't want to bother running Roost. I much rather preferred to have Super Fang on there because of the HP depletion that it does. The other reason, Crobat's fat, but he's not that fat. And Brave Bird is going to be like his main stab move. It's 120 base power stab. And you can't switch... If something switches in that resists Brave Bird, it probably has another counter for Bruce Wayne, and roosting is not really an option. But that was my logic there, and then I realized I needed a late game sweeper. Something that could come in when my opponent is down to like 3 or maybe 2 Pokemon, set up, and sweep. So I needed a fairy type as well, so I went with Om Nom Nom Nom. Om Nom. The Slurpuff. Belly Drum, Play Rough, Drain Punch, and Facade. It's a relatively standard set. I don't bother with the Substitute, and I don't bother with Wish. The reason being, I need all 3 of these attacks. The Play Rough is the stab that we desperately needed. The Drain Punch is for recovery. I will only go back up. I'll be cut down to 79. My Citrus Berry will activate, and I will go back up to 113.5, I think, or 114, something like that. So I need the Drain Punch on there so that I can hit back. This is supposed to be on Earth. And the Facade is because if I get burned, I become useless. Belly Drum and Burn, you're still at... It's the equivalent of being at, I think, +3. And Slurpuff's attack is not that amazing. It can't really deal with that, so that's why I have the Facade on there. I could run like Aromatherapy or something like that, but then I have to get rid of one of my attacks, and I need all 3 of them. I could remove the Facade and give it Aromatherapy, but then I get walled by... Well, Skarmory. Skarmory walls me. Well, Skarmory's an OU. I get walled. I get walled by bulky flying types. I don't get walled by Mandibuzz because it's, dark type also. Doughblade would wall the crap out of me though. Granted, it still does because of, that. But there's nothing I can really do about it. Doughblade, however, it's not my main issue. I have the knockoff on Rock. And Doughblade really doesn't concern me that much. Because Play Rough, if it doesn't have the Eviolite, Play Rough will still do a lot if I'm at max attack. Meaning +6. So that was my logic building this team. Let me know if you prefer this version or the live building version. Whichever version gets the most votes, I'm going to go back to next week. Or I will stay with this. And now I'm going to show you guys the Team Magma team builder thing. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, we are back! We are back, and it's time to show you all of this stuff. This stuff! Over here. I had to figure out which way my camera would be facing. So as you can see here, this is our type breakdown of all of our resistances, all of our immunities, all of our weaknesses, and all of our neutralities. As you can see here, we have no weaknesses to flying. That was actually really important to me. I wanted to put a fighting type on here, but I didn't want to deal with a flying weakness. The reason being, Crobat and Honchkrow are both in this tier. Honchkrow especially is really scary. Honchkrow destroys Frostlass with Sucker Punch. And with Moxie, it just gets more and more dangerous. There are other flying types in this tier as well, but those are the main two that come to mind. I didn't want to have to deal with a Choice Banded Crobat using Brave Bird and killing everything, and I didn't want to have to deal with a Choice Banded Sucker Punch Honchkrow with Moxie wrecking my face. So not having that flying weakness was actually really important to me. And as you see, as you look down, the only thing that we have 3 weaknesses to is Ice. That's Donphan, Hydreigon, and Crobat. However, we have a double resistance in the form of Empoleon, and Empoleon will eat up ice hits for days. Its special defense is off the charts, and it can also fire back with a flash cannon to take out an ice type. So I'm really comfortable with that, I'm not worried about it. We have the one quad weakness of Fairy that Hydreigon has. Again, not really worried about it. I have Empoleon to eat up all of those special Fairy type moves, and worst case scenario, Donphan can eat a Play Rough and probably scare it out, because Donphan's a really powerful mon. And with that Assault Vest, it can eat up it can probably eat up a Moonblast too. But as we look through the rest of this, you see we have a lot of immunities. We have a normal immunity, a fighting immunity, a poison immunity, 2 ground immunities. We have Crobat and Hydreigon. We have the electric immunity, a psychic immunity, and a dragon immunity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 immunities. That's really high. And the reason I'm glad to have that is because we need to have a lot of reliable switch-ins. If you don't have a reliable switch-in for something, then you're kind of fucked. Choice Banded Entei, I was really worried about. I took a page from Mega Mogwai and went straight with physically defensive Hydreigon. It'll eat up Sacred Fires, and it'll eat up Extreme Speeds. The other thing that I was really worried about in this tier, like I said, was the Honchkrow. Empoleon will eat up those hits, and if I can get Frostlass in there, as long as he's not... I can't take a Sucker Punch, but to the same extent, I could also go in with Donphan and hit it with a double Ice Shard, which should take it out, because Honchkrow's not that fat. Honchkrow's actually pretty frail. It looks fat, but it's not. But basically, I should have had Showdown up as well when I was looking at this, to tell you some of the bigger threats that I was worried about, and I'm actually going to do that right now, because that'll help me sort of explain why I decided to bring what I brought, and why I was worried about certain things. Because this is a UU team, by technicality. And as we see here, we have things like Choice Bandit, Arcanine, and Entei. That's taken care of. The Choice Specs Chandelure, or the Choice Scarf Chandelure. Either way, with either of those, I can come in with my Donphan and take probably one attack. Either that, or I can come in with Hydreigon. Hydreigon doesn't have high special defense, but it resists both stabs. But Donphan could easily come in and hit it with a knockoff or an Earthquake and take it out. Chandelure really frail. We have Mega Beedrill. I have my Empoleon to counter that. A couple other things that I was worried about was the Darmanitan. Darmanitan is covered perfectly fine by my Hydreigon. We have Feraligatr, which is covered by Hydreigon as well. It resists the stabs, and I can U-turn out and go into something else. We have Galvantula. Our Defogger, or Rapid Spinner, does not rely on speed. So I'm not worried about switching my Donphan in on Sticky Webs and then Rapid Spinning them away. There's Haxorus, which gets taken care of by, well, Slurpuff, to tell you the truth. Honchkrow is one of the things that I was telling you I was worried about, but I took care of that one. Mamoswine is down in UU now as well. Empoleon actually takes care of Mamoswine really, really well. However, I can't switch it in, because Empoleon can't take an Earthquake. However, one of the other things that I have on my team is the Froslass. Froslass actually handles it kind of well too, just because its stabs don't really worry me, and I can hit it with 2 Shadow Balls, which should take it out. I'm not sure, I didn't check it, but that would be my guess. I am Choice Specs. Nidoking. Nidoking's something you can't really prepare for, but aside from an Earth Power, I can wall it with my Empoleon, and since it's usually Scarfed, I just have to be careful with that. Salamence is down here as well. Salamence gets destroyed by my Froslass. Even at +1 speed. Well, let me rephrase that. If it's at +1 speed, it will outspeed me, but unless it's at that point, Froslass outspeeds it every time, hits it with an Ice Beam, takes it out. And the last thing that I was really worried about here in UU is Suicune. Well, and Suicune and Umbreon, but I kind of keep those two in the same boat since they're super stally and annoying. And my counter to that, keep pulling up the wrong thing, is actually my Slurpuff. Because if I bring in Slurpuff and get off my Belly Drum, I don't care how physically bulky you are, you're getting one-shotted. If I'm at +6 and you're at +0, you're not taking it. You're going down. I don't care. You're going down. Especially if you burn me with Scald, and I hit you with a +6 Facade, you're going down. So that kind of explains my mindset behind everything in this team, because you really have to play to the tier itself. That's one of the things that I really want to emphasize, is that you can't, if you want to win, you can't only use your favorite mons. You have to be a little more creative with it. And that's kind of what I did here. I like all of these Pokemon, but they're not necessarily my favorite. Froslass is actually one of my favorites. It's grown to become one of my favorites just because I love the lore behind it. It's so creepy. But this is going to be my team up here, right here. That's the type chart breakdown. You guys can pause the video here, study it more yourself if you need to. But with that, I'm going to end this episode off. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. It's very much greatly appreciated. But with that, I'm going to get about. Best luck out there. I will see you all soon. Goodbye.